future ENPs. So, kaya natin yan. Hopefully, and let's pray, lahat tayo papasa dito sa upcoming na exam, environmental planning exam. So, for this presentation, we are going to discuss about environmental and natural resources planning, particularly the preparation of the solid waste management plan, the forest land use plan, and the environmental impact assessment. So let us first give some context to our topic. So the environmental and natural resources planning has its roots in the Philippine Constitution, particularly in Section 16, Article 2, where it states that the state, the government, shall protect and advance the right of the people to a balanced and healthful ecology in accord with the rhythm and harmony of nature. So dito po ang pinakapundasyon kung ba tayo nagpaplano patungkol sa ating environment and natural resources, because it is our basic right as a people na maging maayos ang ating environment. And in planning for all ecosystems, iba-ibang ecosystems kasi yan, from ridge to reef, as you can see in this illustration, itong ridge to reef integrated watershed management ecosystem management framework. We will observe, or we can observe here that different plans cover either all ecosystems or specific ecosystems. For example, the CLUP, Comprehensive Land Use Plan, the Comprehensive Development Plan, the ADS-DPP, or the Ancestral Domain Sustainable Development and Protection Plan, the BAP Kalahi Seeds, or the Barangay Action Plan. Medyo mahaba yung Kalahi. It is Kapit Bisig Laban sa Kahirapan, comprehensive and integrated delivery of social services. Yun yung ibig sabihin niya. The Solid Waste Management Plan, which we will discuss, the Disaster Risk Reduction Management Plan, and the Local Climate Change Action Plan. It may cover the whole ecosystem, from forest, upland, lowland, to the coastal and marine ecosystem. For the FLUP, the Integrated Natural Resources Environmental Management Plan, medyo nabago na yung IRMP. Suppose it used to be Integrated Resource Management Plan. Medyo iba lang yung pangalan. And the Integrated Ecosystem Management Plan, it covers the forest and upland ecosystem. While for the Agrarian Reform, Communities Development Plan, minsan tinatawag rin siyang strategy, Agrarian Reform Communities Development Strategy. It is mainly concerned with the upland areas. The Agriculture and the Fisheries Modernization Plan, it covers the upland, lowland, coastal, and marine. There are also various infrastructure planning. Depende po sa focus, and most of them are located in the lowland and sometimes along the coastal and even the marine areas. And finally, we have the Coastal Fisheries Resource Management Plan, which based on its name is concerned with the coastal and marine areas. So iba-ibang plano ang ating ginagawa because we want to be comprehensive and even more detailed in our planning. But of course, the CLUP, as the mother of all plans, it lays down the framework dito sa lahat ng ecosystem from ridge to reef, although hindi siya ganun kadetalye pa. So itong mga sectoral plans na ito, they give more specific details dito po sa iba-ibang ecosystem that they cover. And you will also notice that for each plan, there are national agencies in charge of either preparing them or approving such plans. So kanya-kanya silang toka, ika nga. Now, another law that we have to remember is PD 1151 or the Philippine Environmental Policy. It was passed in 1977, and we want to focus particularly on Section 3, which provides for our right to a healthy environment, and Section 4, which provides for the requirement of environmental impact assessment. So it says that it requires all government offices and even private entities to prepare the EIA in line with the project. Most of them are infrastructure projects. Yan. So kailangan nila yan before they implement yung mga projects na gusto nilang gawin. And the same presidential decree also created the National Environment Protection Council, which we now call as the Environmental Management Bureau. It is under the DENR. And finally, we have PD 1152 or the Philippine Environmental Code, also passed on 1977, which establishes specific environmental management policies and prescribes environmental quality standards. So lahat ng aspeto na ng environment, air quality, water, land use management, natural resources management and conservation, and waste management, wherein itong dalawang huli are the ones which we will focus on in this presentation. So let us now begin our discussion on the first plan, which is the Solid Waste Management Plan. I know many of you are already familiar with this. Baka nga yung iba sa inyo have already experienced preparing this type of plan. So first, we have to ask ourselves, why do we need to plan for our solid waste? So common sense will tell us, and even experience, that the most important aspects of our daily life are affected by solid waste, such as human health, the environment, which is air, water, land, aesthetics, which is the cleanliness and neatness of our environment. Sustainability, which can also refer to sustaining or the longevity of the place wherein we dispose our garbage, such as our controlled dump sites and our sanitary landfill. And of course, our resource use are also affected. That's why we want to reduce, reuse, recycle in order to save our natural resources, our raw materials. Now, the legal basis for preparing the Solid Waste Management Plan is found on RA, Republic Act 9003, or the Ecological Solid Waste Management of 2001. So ilang years na yan? 21 years na nakakalipas. Particularly in Section 16, we see here the mandate for all provinces, cities, municipalities, basically all LGUs, through their local solid waste management boards. So they still have to create this during the time, and they shall prepare the respective 10-year solid waste management plan. And usually, it is the SWM board, the Solid Waste Management Board, that spearheads the preparation with the help of different departments and even the civil society organizations can also help with the same advocacy. And there are also many times that they get the help of urban planning consultants kung medyo kulang sila ng technical preparation or they are not yet equipped to do it on their own. So the 10-year solid waste management plan shall be consistent. So dapat po in line siya doon sa National Solid Waste Management Framework. Particularly focusing on the reuse, recycling, and composting of waste. And the plan shall ensure the efficient management of solid waste generated. So ang ibig sabihin, as much as possible, mas konti yung solid waste that will go to the dump sites or the sanitary landfill because of different methods like recycling, reusing, composting. In the plan, there shall also be primary emphasis on implementation of all feasible reuse, recycling, and composting programs while identifying the amount of landfill and transformation capacity. So dito na sa plan na ito, nilalagay din yung ine-estimate or pinoproject how long or how much volume of solid waste can the sanitary landfill accommodate and how many years can it more or less operate. Yan, so yun ang ginagawa. And also, this plan shall be reviewed and updated every year by the provincial, city, or municipal solid waste management board. So very important yung monitoring ng implementation ng plan. So more so, the LGU is the main entity in managing and enforcing solid waste management. So ang main responsibility lies in the LGU, especially in collection of residual, non-recyclable, and special waste, but with the help of the barangays, which they serve as the frontliner for the implementation of the plan. So what they do is they also enforce the segregation and collection of biodegradable, compostable, and reusable waste within their jurisdiction. Now, in Section 32, this law, RA 9003, also required for the establishment of MRFs to every barangay or cluster of barangay. That's why when we plan, as much as possible, we require one MRF per barangay. But if the barangay is small or there is lack of capacity, then it is possible for the barangays to cluster together and they will have one MRF to serve their solid waste concerns. In Section 37, there is also prohibition on the use of open dump sites. Yan kasi yung nakagawian before. That's why from open dump site, may tinawag na controlled dump site, pero dapat talaga sanitary landfill na lahat. So what is the status of the compliance of RA 9003? So as of February 22, 2022, so recent lang to, ito ay in terms of the plan, the preparation of SWMPs, a total of 1,175 solid waste management plans out of the target of 1,716 have been approved. So more or less we can say maganda naman ang compliance ng ating mga LGUs. So what are the other things that we should take into consideration in connection with the solid waste management plan? So important, yung tinatawag na waste amount and characterization survey. Ito po ay ginagawa. Usually this is the first step that must be done before we proceed in the formulation of the plan itself. Because the WACS will give us the basic data on solid waste, the characteristics, anong klase ba ng garbage ang tinatapon, at kung saan-saan sila dinidispose. So yun po ang kinakailangan if we want our SWMP to be accurate, mas realistic yung mga projections na magagawa. Without the WACS, mahirap, better not proceed. So very po ito, critical yung updated na WACS. So the plan itself is updated every 10 years, but we must review it every year. It should be adopted by the local solid waste management board, and this will be reviewed and approved by the National Solid Waste Management Commission. Yan. Ang National Solid Waste Management Commission, sila naman ay nag-guide. They give the guidelines, they give yung mga templates na kinakailangan para hindi mahirapan ang mga LGU. So important din yung national compliance. Katulad ng lahat ng local plans, it should always be in line with the higher level plans. And the importance of preparing a local SWMP, it can be used or it can be a basis for budgeting. So here, the national SWMC will see what are the proposed projects in line with solid waste, and if the LGU cannot provide the funds for it, then the national government may give their financial assistance para dito sa mga budget na ito o sa mga projects na kailangan budgetan. In terms of application and relation to land use planning, so how can we use the SWMP especially or particularly in the preparation of the comprehensive land use plan? So we can mainstream the important details, such as the design required for the sanitary landfill. So it's very important kung meron ng plano for the sanitary landfill location, yung exact boundaries, then it must be reflected also in the proposed land use map, including also the different routes. Kung bagong location yan, of course, there has to be access roads going to the sanitary landfill, and it must be also reflected in the CLUP. And also, the major programs, projects, and activities and the budget must also be included. The inputs to indicator for state of LGU sustainability, so kung ano pang mga recommendations and mga policy formulation can also be considered in the CLUP. So important ang comprehensive land use plan. So we will now proceed to our second topic, which is the forest land use plan. So let us first differentiate forest land from forest. So when we say forest land, it includes public forest, permanent forest, or forest reserve, and forest reservations. This is according to PD 705. Ang keyword po dito is forest lands are classified under the law. So legally speaking, whether there are still trees in this area, if it is classified as a forest land, then it remains a forest land. Kasi nga po, many times in preparing plans, we experience that a certain area already has communities, may mga urban development na, then when we look at the map, it is still classified as a forest land. So the question is, do we now remove it as part of the forest land? So the answer is no, because under the law, it is still a forest land, even if there is no tree, if there is no forest cover. While when you say forest, then it is the actual situation on the ground. So ang ibig sabihin nun, yung lugar mismo, you will see that the land has trees higher than 5 meters, canopy cover of more than 10%, an area of more than half an hectare. So kalahating hektarya. So it pertains to the type of land cover. So kung ano yung nakikita mo, it could be sa satellite image. Of course, it depends on how updated. Baka naman 10 years ago pa yung satellite image. Basta yung very recent that you can see. Mas maganda nga may ground validation. Pag may puno yan na higher than 5 meters, canopy cover more than 10%, and more than half a hectare yung mga puno na yan, then forest siyang matatawag. Okay, so hopefully that clears up the difference of forest land and forest. As of the related policies, ito po yung mga tatandaan natin. It might appear in our ENP exam. Joint Memorandum Circular number 98-1, okay, pertaining to the Manual of Procedures for DENR DILG LGU Partnership on Devolved and Other Forest Management Functions. So basically, they recognize the Forest Land Use Plan as part of the basic policies. Comprehensive land use and forest land use plans are important tools in the holistic and efficient management of forest resources. So, kahit na sabihin natin na ang comprehensive land use plan ay ridge to reef, still, it is the forest land use plan that gives more detailed policies, what goes on within the forest area. Sa CLUP kasi, most of the time, we just classify them if it's production forest or protection forest. So ganun lang ka-basic. But in the FLUP, it includes the management of the forest itself. And there can be different management uses. Kaya dapat talaga, the CLUP and the FLUP will work hand in hand para mas comprehensive and holistic ang pag-manage natin ng territory, especially dun sa mga forest resources. And it identifies the communal forest and the community watershed areas. Another policy is Executive Order number 318 series of 2004, which is titled Promoting Sustainable Forest Management in the Philippines. So it says here that LGUs are mandated to incorporate FLUP in their CLUP. So many times, we prepare CLUPs and hindi pa na-approve yung FLUP, yung Forest Land Use Plan, or outdated na siya. So what we do is once there is a recently approved FLUP, it automatically takes part of the CLUP. Kung ano man yung policy na nilagay nila sa mga forest area will be honored by the CLUP. The national government agencies shall assist LGUs in this endeavor. Lalong-lalo na sa FLUP, very active ang DENR. Kasi unang-una medyo challenging na ikaw ay aakyat sa bundok for you to really see the situation, and it is really the DENR people who can give proper assistance and even protection dun sa mga taong aakyat. That's why important yung cooperation ng dalawa. So when we say FLUP, what is the basic concept? It must recognize the interactions among upland, lowlands, and coastal ecosystems. Kasi po, ang forest naman and forest land, hindi lang siya puro bundok. They can also be in lowlands. May coastal din yan. Yung mga mangrove areas natin and others. So FLUP uses the ridge-to-reef planning framework to integrate upland, lowland, and coastal interactions within a watershed. In terms of allocation, does it mean that when we assign different uses sa ating forest, ipinamimigay na ba natin yung forest area? Ano bang ibig sabihin ng allocation? So sabi po dito, allocation of forest land is not a process of dividing the land to be handed out to beneficiaries, but it is a management tool for conserving and protecting resources and minimizing future land use and tenure conflicts. In other words, itong FLUP is like the comprehensive land use plan, yung nga lang sa forest. So you're delineating, sinasabi mo, ano yung iba-ibang gamit within the forest. In terms of yung tinatawag nating stewardship or tenurial instrument, ibang dokumento po yun. Hindi dito ginagawa yun sa FLUP. Kasi alam naman natin, our forest land are also being managed by individuals, di ba? Yun yung tinatawag nating rights. May mga rights sila doon sa a particular area. Kung ilang hektarya man ng forest yan. Pero hindi dito sa FLUP ginagawa. In terms of resource managers, so sino mangangalaga ng forest resources natin? So they can be an individual, as I mentioned earlier. Sa implementation na ito, yung mga mismong upland dwellers o kung sino man ang gusto na tumira doon to take care and utilize a portion of the forest land, pwede. So an individual, a group, or an organization, pwede rin, which can aptly preserve, rehabilitate, and protect the area from illegal activities and use the resources in a sustainable manner. So the principle here is ito mga individuals na ito or groups or organizations, binibigyan sila ng stewardship contract, wherein ang sinasabi doon, sige, pwede niyong pagkakitaan, pwede kayong magtanim, you can use them for business, pero may mga limitations, okay, na nakalagay din doon. Pero in return, you have to take care of the forest area. So parang nagsisilbi na rin silang tagabantay nitong mga kagubatan. Unfortunately, in reality, iilan lang talaga yung faithful na-exploit talaga ang ating forest. But that's another topic. Pero ito yung ideal situation. Kasi hindi kaya ng LGU. Although the LGU, in partnership with the DENR, they are the main guardians of our forest resources, but because of lack of manpower, kailangan mo talaga ng tulong ng taong bayan. So sila yung mga stewards to protect our forest. Now, how do you prepare the forest land use plan? There are 7 major steps in preparing. So let us look at them one by one. So step 1, data and map collection. Okay? So the team should be organized first. Ano bang mga roles ang bawat role ng team members. Then a community IEC, information, education, communication, and profiling should be also done. So very important po yung secondary data. Mahirap kasi kung puro primary, it is very costly. That's why malaking tulong yung technology natin, especially with securing yung mga latest satellite images para mas maganda yung ating pagsisimulan nitong ating profiling. It also includes participation of key forest stakeholders. So sila na yung mga stewards, makakadaupang palad din natin sila as we collect data, as we do mapping and validating related data. So yun yung basic activities sa unang step. Now after that, we go to the second step, which is the situational analysis. It is identification of issues and opportunities. So may mga challenges, may mga problema, pero may mga opportunities din na magaganda. The technical working group evaluates the current situation. It could be based on the secondary data gathered or doon sa kanilang ground validation and even key stakeholder interview. So ang ginagawa nila, gumagawa sila ng mga map overlay analysis. I hope ito'y naituro na sa inyo how to do that. Simplified simulation techniques and other tools. Then third, participatory prioritization of sub-watershed and allocation of FFL. Ano ba ang FFL? Ito yung forest and forest land. So parehas sila nakasama sa pagpaplano. So here you discuss the key findings of the previous step, and then you start formulating the vision, mission, goals, and objectives for managing the forests and forest lands. So ito ay workshop na ang gagawin ninyo with the key stakeholders. Then you formulate strategies for the zoning and development. So through consultation and proper analysis, you will be able to determine ano ba yung suitable management schemes or strategic uses and sustainable uses of the forest area. Then you you produce a set of criteria which will be agreed upon to come up with the prioritization of sub-watershed. Yung mga ganyan naman may templates na yan, which you can just improvise, depende sa situation. Number 4, step 4 is the plan preparation. So ito more on writing na kasi nagawa nyo na yung mga field work, mga workshops. So now you are going to process yung mga nagawa ninyo and you present the outputs in the plenary. Sino ba yung plenary? Di lahat ng stakeholders can be invited or yung mga representatives para hindi sobrang dami. Kasama na rin dun yung mga concerned na government offices and the technical working group. So once you finish the draft FLUP, ganun naman every step of the way you have to present para may tamang validation, para you make sure that people are involved and there is ownership of the plan. Then step 5 is legitimization, wherein the draft will be presented to the Municipal Development Council kung ito yung munisipyo, or the City Development Council if it's a city. Kasi may mga city po na may mga forest. Hindi naman lahat ng city ay parang Metro Manila. So yan, so it could be the MDC or CDC, and then after that it will be endorsed to the Sangguniang Bayan, okay, or the Panlungsod, depende kung city or municipality, and the DNR Regional Executive Director. Alam ko Regional Director na lang ang tawag dyan. But anyway, Regional Executive Director yung red. It is important, to be legitimized by the Sangguniang Bayan to be part of the annual investment program. So very po yan, crucial. Baliwala ang plano if the proposed programs, projects, and activities in the FLUP with the budget component will not be included in the annual investment program of the municipality or the city. Hindi po mapopondohan yung proyekto kung ganon. So the TWG will draft the resolution to legitimize the plan and endorse it to the DNR Regional Director. Step 6 is the FLUP approval. So it will be approved by the DNR Regional Executive Director, and then a joint FLUP implementation memorandum of agreement between the LGU and the DNR will be signed, emphasizing the roles and responsibilities of both parties. So ang tawag po dyan ay co-management ng LGU at ng DNR. And finally, the implementation itself. So kung 10 years yan, 10 years yung implementation, the LGU and DNR will implement the plan. Sila yung lead implementer. Okay, now I also want you to be aware na merong tinatawag na smart forest land use planning. Okay, it's basically the same. Sabi nga dito, yung mga steps, context, concept principles parehas pa rin as what we have discussed earlier. Idinagdag lang, okay, they gave highlight or priority dun sa tinatawag na ecosystem services derived from forest and forest lands. Okay, ano ba ang ibig sabihin ng ecosystem service? Mamaya tingnan natin. Pero bakit siya tinawag na SMART? Kasi dito kinonsider na yung impacts of climate change. Okay, so ibig sabihin lang mas na-enhance siya. It recognizes the contribution of the forest and forest lands to water sustainability, maintenance of biodiversity, natural and cultural features, and avoidance of erosion. It reiterates the watershed as the unit of management and decision-making. And number 4, it allows the quantification and valuation of ecosystem services. So here are example of ecosystem services. So like water regulation, water provision, sediment control, erosion control. Ang ibig sabihin, ito yung nagiging benefit ng iba-ibang ito yung nagiging benefit dahil sa ating pag-protect sa ating kagubatan, sa ating kabundukan, sa ating natural resources. And it gives justification why you have to put more funds or to put more projects. Kasi nga naman marami sa ating mga strategies or recommendations, it will entail budget, and so you have to justify bakit kailangan lagyan ng pera. And this is where these ecosystem services come in. Sasabihin mo, importante yan kasi. Ayan. It helps in erosion control, timber provision, carbon sequestration. Okay, it gives a more sustainable supply of water, especially for the households. So ganyan po yan. Or even water for our agricultural areas. So medyo may mga prosesong involved din dyan, yung environmental or ecosystem services modeling, may ganun na ginagawa dyan, wherein you also make use of maps or remote sensing images, and you combine different spatial data sets for you to estimate kung ano ba yung kapasidad ng ecosystem services, to what extent. And yung pag sinabi naman nating ecosystem or ecosystem services valuation, we are giving monetary valuation, a monetary equivalent of the services provided by the ecosystem. Okay, so hopefully that's clear. Now, what are the major issues and concerns regarding the implementation of the Forest Land Use Plan? The first is areas classified as forest land based on the land classification map are not allowed to have development or built up areas. Okay, so this is generally speaking. Okay, na kapag ito ay forest land, ibig sabihin kahit wala na nga mga puno doon, it's a no-build zone. But of course, there are exceptions. So ito ay general general principle, kasi we know in the zoning ordinance there are many parts of the forest that can be declared by the DENR itself na they are areas for civil reservation. So may mga communities diyan, may settlements. We also have parts of forest or forest land na nagiging military reservation. So talagang may mga built up pa rin, no? May mga special use zones pa within the forest. So hindi talaga strictly walang development, but this is a general principle. Pag yan ay forest land, dapat protected area lang siya, or puro forest lang dapat, or forest activities, no? The second major issues and concern ay yung land tenurial instrument. Okay? So it is applied by certain entities to allow the use of forest land, usually for social, community forestry, or livelihood. As I mentioned earlier, ang idea dyan is to help the government, the local and the national government, to manage the forest. So they give this tenurial instrument, mga stewardship agreement, to people, individuals, or groups, so they can use the forest land for their livelihood, pero hindi naman lahat ng puno ay puputulin nila. Just a certain percentage ang gagamitin nila sa lugar, and they have to protect the rest. So bakit siya naging issues and concern? Kasi yun nga, in reality, hindi nila nasusunod yung agreement. Hindi talaga nila napoprotect ang ating kagubatan, but instead they are even the ones, or one of the main culprits of the loss of our forest cover or our deforestation. So of course nasa DENR din yan, dapat for them to monitor kung anong nangyayari. And the third is reclassification of forest lands into alienable and disposable is only allowed through an act of Congress. So why is that an issue? Kasi nga, there are many forest areas, forest lands or forests that there are already residential development and other urban development. But as long as they are still part of the forest as declared by the national government, then they cannot be titled to the individual or a group. Hindi siya pwedeng tituluhan. It will remain a public land. So nandoon yung ngayon, dilemma. Maraming, I know that you are aware, minsan nga may mga barangay hall pa within the forest at kung ano-ano pa. So that sums up the forest land use plan. So finally, for our third and last topic for this hour, we will discuss the Philippine Environmental Impact Statement System. So let's look at the brief history. So nagsimula pala ito sa ibang bansa, US National Environmental Policy Act. Dito unang na-introduce yung Environmental Impact Assessment in January 1970. And the Philippines, implemented or adopted the same concept or policy only in 1977. So may mga nauna Australia, Thailand, France, and then Philippines in 1977. So in that same year, in-issue ng ating national government yung PD 1151, which is the Philippine Environmental Policy of 1977, wherein tinatawag siyang landmark law. Kasi nga ito yung una na nagpatupad regarding this environmental impact statement. So anong sinasabi niya? It requires submission of an environmental impact statement on projects and activities that may adversely affect the environment. So ang ibig sabihin lang nun, kung ang gagawin mong proyekto o mga iba-ibang aktibidades ay may masamang epekto sa environment, you need the approval first of the national government, and you have to submit a study so that may proper assessment and proper mitigation na pwedeng gawin. Otherwise, hindi maa-approve yung proyekto or activity. And it requires all government offices. So hindi exempted ang government, the government, and lalong-lalo na ang private entities. To prepare this document. Now, another law that we must remember is PD 1586. So it is the establishment of the Philippine Environmental Impact Statement System State. So ang sabi dito, no person, partnership, or corporation shall undertake or operate any such declared environmentally critical project or area without first securing an environmental compliance certificate. So dalawang aspeto po ang sinasabi dito. It's either the project is environmentally critical in nature, or even if it is not environmentally critical, but if it is located in an area that is environmentally critical, you need to first secure an ECC, yung Environmental Compliance Certificate. Na ini-issue yan ng DENR. So tingnan muna natin yung definition ng environmental impact statement. It is the process that involves predicting and evaluating the likely impacts of a project. Bakit predicting? Kasi hindi mo pa man ginagawa yung project, hindi mo pa man sinisimulan. You are now projecting what will be the possible effects in different phases of the project. So nag-uumpisa ka pa lang, pinapatag mo pa lang yung ground, yung tinatawag nating nag-earth moving ka pa lang, or naglaland development ka pa lang. Simula sa umpisa hanggang kino-construct na yung infrastructure, yung building o kung ano man, hanggang ito'y matapos, dapat you will be able to say what will be its impact on the environment. And obviously, isa sa mga maiisip natin dito, yung mga puno napuputulin. Isa na yan sa unang maaapektuhan kung meron yang mga sabihin nating hindi naman siguro wildlife pero syempre sa mga punong yan may mga maaapektuhan din na mga animals, mga ibon at kung ano-ano pa. So kasama yan sa impact. At syempre yung mga tao na maaapektuhan, they are part of the things that you have to take into consideration. And because of that, ikaw na ang dapat mag-design. Anong gagawin mo? To prevent? Pag-prevent, hindi na mangyayari. Mitigate, pwedeng mangyari pero mababawasan ang masamang epekto. And enhancement measures, addressing these consequences to protect the environment and the community's welfare. Okay, in other words, EIA is a planning tool. So, kahit na yan ay concerned lang usually sa isang project, it is still a way for us to plan ahead in consideration of the environment and natural resources. Kasi kahit water source can be affected. Yung ating river, kung malapit siya sa water body, pwedeng ma-pollute. So, kaya kailangan ng ganito. It involves predicting and evaluating. Okay? Ilalagay mo yung impact ng project in all stages. Pre-construction, construction, operation, and abandonment. With appropriate preventive mitigating and enhancement measure. Dapat kasama yan. And the overall purpose is to protect environment and welfare of community. So meron social aspect, hindi lang puro yung environment. Okay? So more on the basic policies and operating principle. So tignan natin one by one. So the EIS system is concerned primarily with assessing the direct and indirect impacts. Ayan. Ibig sabihin ng direct, yung mismong tatamaan doon sa project site, within the bounds of the project site. Pero may indirect kasi yan at may long term. Kahit hindi mismo yung madi-displace, yung nasa paligid niya, or lalo na kung yan ay water system, kung river, di ba? Malayo ang inaabot ng flow ng river. So yan, maraming dapat aspetong tingnan. Okay, so we will look at the biophysical and human environment, and we must make sure that these impacts are addressed. Yun lang naman ang in a nutshell. Gusto mo lang, you just want to prove or to ensure, to assure yan the government, DENR, that even though the project will have such impacts, you will do everything that you can to so that it will not happen, or the effects will be mitigated. Now, the EIS system aids proponents in incorporating environmental considerations in planning their projects, as well as in determining the environment's impact on their project. Ayan. So, ang ibig sabihin dito, hindi naman nakakasama yung requirement na to, kundi nakakatulong pa nga. Kasi nga, yung iba, sasabihin nila, dagdag trabaho pa, pero hindi. It even helps them plan their projects properly. Third, project proponents are responsible for determining and disclosing all relevant information. So very important yung honesty. Kung ano talaga yung itatayo mo doon sa project site, you have to divulge it. Kaya nga hinihingi dito yung tinatawag na site development plan. Ano ba yung mga buildings na itatayo mo? Ano ba yung ilalagay mo dyan? Even some detail, hindi naman sobrang detailed palagi, but saan mo ba ilalagay yung water system mo, yung basically the infrastructure that you will lay down. At pag sinabi mong ito lang yung ilalagay mo, you have to be honest about it. Ano. Unfortunately, maraming gumagawa niyan. Ano, i-declare nila sa kanilang application, maliit lang yung building o ito lang yung features na ilalagay nila, yung pala sa implementation mas malaki yung ilalagay nila. When that happens, there will be corresponding penalties pagka ganun ang kanilang ginawa. Number 4, the review of EIA reports by EMB shall be guided by 3 general criteria. Number 1, that environmental considerations are integrated in the overall project planning, that the assessment, okay, number 2, the assessment is technically sound, okay, and proposed environmental mitigation measures are effective. Bakit technically sound? Ibig sabihin, evidence-based, no? Scientific, hindi yung kwento-kwento lang. Kaya nga, in doing the EIA, you will secure many specialists. May hydrologist ka, meron kang geologist, kung kailangan mo ng maayos na yung measurement ng air. So lahat yan titignan mo. Na talagang certified by professional, by authorized people, and of course following the template. May template naman na binibigay ang DENR para hindi maliligaw yung gagawa ng ganitong pag-aaral. Okay? Number 3, that the EIA process is based on a timely, informed, and meaningful public participation of potentially affected communities. Ayan. Important yung social aspect. Lalo na kung may mga tao nakatira doon sa site or malapit sa site that will be affected. So important that in every step or major step in the EIA process na i-involve yung community. Pinapapirma pa nga yung mga yan na pruweba that they were consulted. Number 5. Okay, effective regulatory review of the EIA reports depends largely on timely, full, and accurate disclosure. Okay, so that is understandable. And number 6, the timelines prescribed within which a decision must be issued apply only to the processes and actions within the Environmental Management Bureau's control and do not include actions or activities that are the responsibility of the proponent. So later, makikita natin ano ba yung saklaw ng proponent, ano yung saklaw ng EMB. Okay, so tingnan muna natin yung regulatory framework and guidelines. Again, important na naman itong mga policies natin and laws or regulation. So Proclamation number 2146 series of 1981, it says proclaiming certain areas and types of projects as environmentally critical and within the scope of the environmental impact statement system established under PD number 1586. So dito dinidefine lang niya what are the environmentally critical projects or ECPs and the environmentally critical areas. Another is Proclamation number 803 series of 1996 na sinali na lahat ng golf courses and they are categorized as environmentally critical projects. Okay, number 3, Department Administrative Order number 30 series of 2003 na may IRR din, okay, of PD 1586. Number 4, EMB Memorandum Circular 2007-02, which is the revised procedural manual of DAO 2003-30. Okay, basically yung kanyang bagong inintroduce ay ito, no permits and or clearances issued by other national government agencies and LGU shall be required in the processing of ECC or CNC application. Number 5, DENR, Environmental Management Bureau Memorandum Circular number 2011-005 na inincorporate na yung DRR and climate change adaptation. Kasi naging masigasig na yung pag-mainstream ng ating climate change at disaster risk. So, kailangan may ganitong component na rin sa ating EIA. Number 6, DENR, EMB, MC number 2014-05 which is the revised guidelines for coverage, screening, and standardized requirements under PEISS. So madami, ano? You will notice na regular ang pag-update ng ating national agency, ng DENR, lalo na dito sa mga guidelines nila. Kasi based on their experience, their observation, and the changing of times, syempre natututo rin sila. So mas ini-improve nila yung mga guidelines na ito. Okay? So ito yung mga basic manuals and guides as I mentioned earlier. Hindi naman tayo maliligaw if we are going to prepare itong application natin for ECC. Dahil meron namang pinoprovide ang national agency, ang EMB. Okay, so katulad po nito, yung DAO Administrative Order 30 Series of 2003, itong EMB Memorandum Circular 005 Series of 2014, at yung DNR Administrative Order 2017-15. So yan naman ay mada-download natin sa kanilang website. Now, tingnan natin yung classification ng projects. Kasi nabanggit nga natin, pag ikaw ay environmentally critical project or located ka sa environmentally critical area, you have to secure environmental compliance certificate, which it entails preparing itong environmental impact assessment. So ano yan? Okay? Importante na aware tayo kung ano yung project type, ilalagay natin yan, saan nakalocate, and the nature of potential impact. And there are different classifications of projects. Okay, so pag ito ay environmentally critical project, automatic yan, you need to secure ECC. Bakit mahalaga yan? Kasi syempre medyo mabusisi ang pag-aaral na gagawin, mas masusi, mas detalyado, at compared kung CNC na lang, Certificate of Non-Coverage. Pwede ring projects within environmentally critical areas. Kung sabihin natin, located ka dun sa hazard prone area, okay, yung masyadong steep ang slope na pwedeng gumuho anytime, yung mga ganun, or malapit ka sa fault line, or whatever the nature, or kahit walang hazard, kung ikaw ay malapit sa, sabihin nating key biodiversity area, medyo sensitive yung biodiversity doon. So kailangan mo talagang mag-secure ng ECC. Projects that enhances the environment, okay, and projects unlikely to cause significant adverse environmental impacts. So kasama din yun. And normally, pag nasa CND ka, hindi ka na i-require ng ECC. Isasubmit mo lang sa EMB na ito yung project mo. May checklist ka lang, 1 page lang yun, Certificate of Non-Coverage. Ibig sabihin, hindi ka na covered ng ECC. So here are some of the criteria ng pag sinabi mong environmentally critical projects ka. So may pinagbasehan din yan, Proclamation number 2146. So may tinatawag na heavy industries, so iba-ibang klase yan, resource extractive industries, infrastructure projects like major dams, basta mga yan, large scale na tinatawag, and mapapansin nyo rin na even yung kanyang pwedeng i-produce or i-generate na pollution, di ba? Ay rin, malaki rin, talagang hazardous siya, or pollutive. Yan, karamihan diyan na mga nasa industrial na ang kanyang category, industrial, major industrial. And of course kasama na rin yung golf courses. Okay? So usually naman 'yan, i-affirm ng EMB kung talagang yan ay magka-qualify sa ganyang project. Now, pwedeng yung mismong project mo ay hindi naman siya environmentally critical. Kunyari, ang itatayo mo lang school. Wala namang environmentally critical sa school. Or church. Yung mga simpleng structure lang. Pero, located ka naman dito. Nasa flood-prone area ka. Okay, o nasa lugar ka na kung saan marami kang puputulin na puno, ibig sabihin malapit ka sa mga environmentally sensitive areas, or yung soil quality niya ay hindi ganun ka-stable na tinatawag. So kasama rin 'yon, pero ito kaya siya sinabing environmentally critical din, nasa ECP pa pala tayo, dahil yung project na gagawin mo could produce or could cause itong damage sa environment. So marami pong ganyan, may mga projects na papatagin nila yung medyo hilly na area, ibubulldozer nila yan, papatagin. So ganun kalaki yung impact sa terrain, sa environment, or maraming puno na kailangan tanggalin, at during the construction ng project, it could create different types of pollution, pollution sa tubig, erosion, and others. Okay? Pagdating naman po sa environmentally critical areas, ito naman yung mga location na mukhang alanganin bago ka i-approve. Talagang you really have to justify na hindi masisira itong mga or magiging safe yung iyong project. Kung ito ay within the national park, watershed, ibig sabihin protected forest na yan, or nasa aesthetic potential tourist spot, na pwedeng masira yung view, okay, or yung mismong tourist spot, hindi pwede yun. It may threaten yung habitat ng endangered species. It could affect yung mga historical, archaeological sites. Okay? Pwede rin na nandoon yung ating mga indigenous people, di ba? Occupied by cultural communities or tribes. Or it is a hazard prone, a danger zone. Critical ang slope niya, masyadong matarik. It is within the prime agricultural land that we have to protect. Pwede rin na doon sa lugar na yon ay nandoon yung source of natin. Yun yung tawag na aquifer, yung groundwater pinagkukunan ng ating drinking water. Water bodies, malapit ka sa ilog, okay, sa lake o kung saan man. Mangrove areas, coral reefs. Okay, so basically yung mga protected areas natin ito ang tinutukoy. And you will also notice na may mas specific pa na tinitignan. Hindi porke sinabi mo na ganito yung project mo ay gene-generalize na nila. So as you will notice dito sa ating table, tinitingnan din nila, mini-measure nila yung size. Kunyari in metric tons, okay, pag more than 30,000 or pag between 10,000 to but less than 30,000. So depende sa laki nung project mo ay meron din siyang corresponding na requirement from Environmental Management Bureau. Okay, so types of projects, tinitignan din yung status. It could be a new project or it is already existing pero without ECC. Kasi medyo luma na yung structure prior to 1982. Pero, okay, kahit na hindi na siya ni-require nung una, pero meron ka ngayong proposed expansion. Okay, so gagawan mo na ngayon. Okay, mag-a-apply ka na ngayon for ECC. Depende. It could be ECC or CNC. Pero kung may modification or expansion ka na doon sa existing. Or pwedeng beyond 1982 siya but still with expansion or modification. It could, sinasama mo rin to, single ba o co-located. Okay? So iba-iba po ang documents. Hindi naman natin kailangang ma-master pa lahat kung paano gawin to. But at least we have to be aware dun sa mga terminologies and yung mga slight differences niya. Ito kasi ay depende sa project. ito yung ire-require sa'yo. So number 1, environmental impact statement. Okay, a document prepared and submitted by the project proponent, okay, or EIA consultant that serves as an application for an ECC. So ito namang isa, programmatic environmental impact statement. Okay, a comprehensive study on environmental baseline conditions of a contiguous area. Okay, it includes an assessment of the carrying capacity of the area to absorb impacts from co-located projects such as those in industrial estates or economic zones. Now, meron din EPRMP, Environmental Performance Report and Management Plan. So, documentation of the actual cumulative environmental impacts and effectiveness of current measures for single projects that are already operating but without ECCs. So, papansin nyo, ibang criteria ng project ito na EPRMP na lang ang nire-require. Now, meron ding Programmatic Environmental Performance Report and Management Plan, which is a documentation of actual cumulative environmental impacts of co-located projects with proposals for expansion. And lahat ito ay may mga format na rin na susundan. Initial Environmental Examination Report, document similar to an EIS but with reduced details and depth assessment and discussion. Normally ito mga checklist lang yan. May mga question lang dyan, checkan mo lang, or lalagyan mo ng konting details dun sa nakikita mo sa site. Initial environmental examination checklist. Okay, so ito na nga yun. So the checklist, ito yung gagamitin mo to do the report. Now, number 7, project description report. Document that describes the nature, configuration, use of raw materials and natural resources, production system, waste or pollution generation and control, and the activities of a proposed project. Yan. Basically, dinidescribe mo ano yung project mo. Okay, ganun lang naman yun. Pero may format din kasi na nire-require what should be included in the project description. So ito po, ito yung guide kung saan papasok ang project mo. Ganyan. So, sasabihin niya, for example, dito, pagka environmentally critical project, it's a new project, single project, so EIS. Pag co-located project, programmatic EIS. So, ganun lang yun. Depende sa kung saang category yung project mo, ay sasabihin ni EMB what you need to submit. Now, what are the contents of EIA? So ito yung mga makikita, the Environmental Management Plan. Okay? Na doon makikita yung Impacts Management Plan, Social Development Plan, Information, Education, and Communication Plan. Nandoon din yung Environmental Monitoring Plan na it stipulates the activities to be conducted to mitigate or enhance impacts, monitoring activities, budgetary requirement, and responsible entity or body. Kasama din doon, okay? Ito na, once na pumasa na, yung ginawa mong EIA, whatever document ang ni-require sa'yo, specific document, now you will be given an ECC. And this is a document issued by the DENR through the Environmental Management Bureau after a positive review of the ECC application. Ayan. So ang ibig sabihin lang niyan ay na-convince mo sila doon sa iyong mga ginawang technical studies and recommendations na dapat ay tutuparin mo rin. And pwede ring certificate of non-coverage ang ibibigay sa iyo kung yung project mo ay hindi covered na nitong EIS system. Ibig sabihin, hindi naman siya critical project, hindi rin siya located sa critical area. Pwede ka rin bigyan ng denial letter. If based on their assessment, magiging adverse ang effect sa environment at hindi rin magiging safe yung mismong project na ilalagay mo. Who has the authority to issue ECC? Only the President of the Philippines through DENR EMB. Okay, and for environmentally critical projects, the DENR EMB Regional Office. Okay, so tandaan nyo yan, baka tanungin yan. Now, what are the basic contents of ECC? So ito yung outline. Tatlong major lang naman sections. So the first is the scope of the project or undertaking, then the conditions conformed by the proponent to implement mitigating measures, and the recommendations. Okay? In terms of validity, gaano katagal ba magiging valid yung ECC mo? Sabi, once the project is implemented, it remains valid and active for the lifetime of the project unless otherwise specified. Okay? But its validity is dependent in the compliance of the proponent to the ECC conditions. Kasi nga within the ECC or within your EIA, sinasabi mo doon ano ang ilalagay mo na mga mitigating measures, for example, or anong design yung project na gagawin mo to make sure that it will not have adverse environmental impacts. Pero paano if in reality or nung tinayo mo na yung building mo, hindi mo naman pala sinunod yung design or hindi mo nilagay yung mga sinasabi mong ilalagay mo na mitigating measures. So nilabag mo yung conditions ng ECC. So mawawala yung validity niya. Now, nag-expire ba ang ECC? Okay, once you applied for ECC, na-approve siya, pero hindi mo naman itinayo yung project mo within 5 years, then it will expire. Okay? Ang sabi dito, in case mag-expire na siya within 3 months, okay, prior to the expiration, you have to write a letter of extension. So, para naman hindi ka na ulit gagawa ng panibagong pag-aaral, nauulitin mo lahat. At syempre, may gastos din na involve yun. So, ano ba yung connection ng EIA in the project cycle? As you will remember a while ago, ang EIA, kino-cover niya yung buong proseso ng project. From pre-construction to construction, hanggang i-operate mo na, hanggang i-abandon mo na. So, para lang ma-relate natin, okay, pag nasa project conceptualization ka, ito na, site selection, environmental screening, initial assessment, scoping. Yun yung gagawin mo sa EIA. Then, pre-feasibility, okay, detailed assessment, identification of mitigation needs, inputs to CBA. Kahit na nakikita nyo tong project cycle na to, hindi mo naman gagawin lang yung EIA habang tinatayo yung project, no? Kaya nga sabi kanina, you have to predict beforehand. Ito ay parang ikino-connect mo lang in every stage of the project, but even before you implement it, dapat nagawa mo na yung EIA mo. Okay? So dito sa feasibility, findings and recommendations of EIA considered in various permits and licenses needed. Pag sa detailed engineering naman, detailed design of mitigation measures. Then, project construction and development, the implementation of mitigating measures. And then sa operation na, nandun na yung monitoring, validation and evaluation, audit of ECC, or environmental compliance and overall performance. Okay? Now, itong, ano man tawag dito? Flowchart, no? Well, pinapakita sa atin yung process nitong EIA at kasama din doon kung sino yung in charge, no? So yung kulay yellow, si proponent ang gagawa nito, yung light yellow. Itong medyo dark yellow na, si DENR ang in charge, no? Now itong green na ang border niya ay hindi broken lines, proponent options. Yung may broken lines are not part of EIA process, and we also have the public involvement, which makikita nyo every major step, ini-involve natin yung mga stakeholders na tinatawag. Hindi lang yung mga taong apektado, but even the related mga government agencies, no? mga personalities na dapat ma-involve. So anong sabi dito? Mag-uumpisa ka sa project screening, no? This is the first step. Then aalamin kailangan mo bang mag-submit ng EIA o hindi. Pag hindi na, diretso ka na sa pag-secure ng permit. No? Ibig sabihin, ECC ka na lang, pwede mo nang i-implement yon. But if you need EIA, so mag-scoping ka, mag-EIA study ka, and then when you submit it to the DENR, EMB, then they make the review and evaluation. Okay, it's either they approve or deny. Okay, pag na-approve ka, well and good, diretso ka na, no, sa pag-secure ng permit, and then you implement. No? Pag na-deny ka, you have the option to relocate. Okay, hindi talaga pwede dun sa site, so mag-relocate ka na lang, and or you change the project plan, whichever will satisfy yung requirements ng DENR or ang EMB. No? And then you go back to the same process of doing the scoping. Okay? Of course, once you implement, there's a possibility na after some years, mag-expand ka. Ang sabi dito, any expansion or project modification, you have to go through another application. Hindi mo pwedeng i-count yung dati mo nang sinubmit kung mag-expand ka. Now, very important din, dito pa lang sa scoping, yung social preparation. Kailangan i-involve natin yung social acceptability. Katulad nung sinasabi dito, how do you do the social preparation? Okay? Information, education, communication, perception survey, nag-i-interview ka. Okay, so may questionnaire ka dyan. Then, project description for scoping. After that, meron ka ring consultation, so medyo formal na to, you gather people, you present to them yung mga initial na nagagawa mo na, and sila naman ay magbibigay ng kanilang comments, ng kanilang inputs. No? And then, pag okay na yung mga ganyan, then gagawa ka na ng baseline survey and studies. No? So, ano ba yung mga gagawin mong environmental studies? Pagdating sa land, land use and classification, ito naman ay makukuha na natin sa munisipyo yan, or sa city hall, based sa kanilang land use plan. Pasok ba yung project mo doon sa kanilang land use or sa zoning? Geology, geomorphology, dahil site specific tayo, kukuha ka na ng geologist diyan. Kung kinakailangan, may study ka rin sa pedology, terrestrial ecology, i-inventory mo yung mga puno, mga plants, at yung affected na mga wildlife. Then you have the water study, hydrology. Ayan. O depende what will apply, oceanography, water quality, at sa mga ganito you need specialists. Kasi they will give you ano ba yung measurement ng water quality na yan, at kung ano-ano pang requirement. So medyo magastos din ng konti. Air, kasama rin yan, meteorology, climatology, air quality and noise. Yan. Swerte na lang kung pwede na natin gamitin yung secondary data, but there are times that we need to be site specific. Then the people, environmentally impact. So sino ba yung mapapaalis dun sa lugar? Ayan, dahil sa project mo. Okay, or pwedeng hindi sila mapaalis, pero kung may pollution, mapipilitan din silang umalis. Will there be an effect, adverse effect sa culture, lifestyle, sa mga tao? Okay, ano ba yung mga maapektuhan din or needs in terms of health, safety, and the benefits? Okay? So kasama rin ang disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation. So kailangan mo ring i-predict yan. Siyempre long-term ang climate change, ang disaster ay mas yearly nating pwede ma-experience yan. May GHG emission pa, greenhouse gas. Kung ang project mo ay sabihin nating industrial, nagpo-pollute siya, so you also have to make projections, ano ba yung mai-emit mo na greenhouse gas, and the environmental risk assessment. Okay? Other requirements, if project is located in a protected area, so kailangan mo daw mag-secure muna ng tenurial instrument. If there is presence of indigenous people or indigenous community, i-include mo sila sa process. No, kailangan stakeholder din sila. Then, hihingin din ito ng EMB, proof of authority. Napaka-basic niyan. Pwedeng titulo. Sa'yo ba talaga yon? Baka mamaya magtatayo ka dun sa lugar na hindi pala sa'yo. So, dapat may ipe-present kang title or any proof of authority. Compatibility to land use, as mentioned before. No? Baka ang itatayo mo, industrial, residential pala yun o agricultural, bawal. No? Affidavit of no complaint from the LGU. Of course, kailangan ng LGU din ay payagan ka. May mga violations din. Unfortunately, parang masyadong mababa. Sabi, 50,000 na yung pinakamataas. So, kaya yung iba namimihasa. Projects with or without ECCs which pose grave and irreparable danger to environment, life, and property. Marami kasing nangyayari dyan na nandyan na yung project, wala pa yung ECC. That's why important itong mga penalties. No? So ito yung kanilang schedule of penalties na medyo nakakalungkot. Kasi magkano lang ba to? 12,500, 2,500. No? It's only peanuts, no? Para sa mga malalaking mga projects. Pero mabuti naman kasi kahit na maliit, kung patuloy ka na magba-violate, yun, pwedeng ipasara yung operations or mismong ipatigil yung kung ano man yung project na nandoon. Okay? So as I close or as we end our discussion, I have a quote here. Sabi, the recipe for success: study while others are sleeping, work while others are loafing, prepare while others are playing, and dream while others are wishing. Talagang may sacrifice na kasama dyan. But sa dulo naman, it is worth it once we have achieved our goals. So yan, I pray that you will have the right preparation and lahat kayo ay papasa at magiging ENP. So thank you very much for listening.